So here we go. All right, so what is this video about? What were we able to perceive from the video? What is it about? If there was anything interesting for you, go for it, Daniel. David, I'm sorry. Sorry.
And don't worry, miss. It's a video about how a man used the flour to make a better recipe to defeat the hunger.
Okay. And maybe instead of the bread, it was more directly the noodles, right? The noodles to feed hunger in his country. And I mean, these noodles are very well known, right? Um, but I want to hear from you. So what else? What other thoughts did you had for the video? What is the video also about? If you have any other details about the video, tell me. I want to hear you or read you. So what is it? Okay, that it's a global product, right? It is well known everywhere. Even there's been some discussion that they want to take away uh, all related to noodles and things like that because of some sort of cancer that you can develop. But I mean, it depends on how we prepare it because I believe that the intention for the noodles is to prepare them and not to them in the microwave. So maybe there's some radiation that react to some chemicals, maybe. I'm not really sure, but yeah, there's been a dispute about it. So excellent. Now, most or overall, we are seeing a topic about where things come from, right? It can be things for in regards products. It can be even a movement. So today on our class, we're going to be discussing about uh, where things come from, okay? And this can be global or local. So we will start with a conversation. This is Lucy, who is an economics student that will interview Monty. So you will have the actual script, but I encourage you to maybe not read it and try to listen to the information and details that they say, okay? So that way you can practice a little bit more on your listening skills, okay? So let's go ahead and listen to the audio and let's watch out of the information about where does Monty think his laptop, coffee, and sandwich come from, and maybe compare if you think the same way as Monty thinks, okay? So let's see, where does Monty thinks his laptop, coffee, and sandwich come from? So let's go.
Lesson 10.2, page 100. Exercises 1B and 1C.
Thanks for helping me with my project, Monty. So, my first question is, do you know where your laptop comes from?
Well, it's an American brand, but it probably wasn't made in the US. I guess it was designed there and then manufactured in China. But I didn't think about that when I bought it. I just wanted a good laptop for a good price.
I understand. And how about your coffee?
I guess the coffee beans were imported. They weren't grown here in Canada, that's for sure. They were probably shipped from Brazil. I think that's where some of the best coffee comes from. And this is really good.
Yeah. And how about your sandwich?
Well, I know it's fresh because it was made right in front of me. I'm not sure about the things in it, though. The tuna was probably caught and frozen weeks ago, but maybe the tomatoes were grown here. I hope so. It's good when fruit and vegetables are produced locally.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'll get one of those sandwiches now. Talking about food always makes me hungry.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Um, where does Monty think his laptop comes from? Or the coffee or the sandwich? Where does he think all those things come from? Okay, so from outside the US. All right, so that's in regards to the laptop. Thank you so much, Mad. Uh, anyone else? You can talk about coffee or the sandwich. So where does Monty think his coffee is from? Jonathan.
Monty thinks that the coffee comes from Brazil.
From Brazil, right? Yes. All right. And then, um, what about the sandwich? So laptop outside from the US, coffee from Brazil, and what about the sandwich? So what do they say about the sandwich? So we have a handmaid in front of him. So yeah, he was thinking that maybe it was manufactured the laptop in China but designed in the US. The coffee may be from Brazil and the tomatoes are locally grown, right? And I will play it just one more time and let's see why did Monty buy his laptop? And what does he know for sure about his sandwich? So, two things to pay attention to. Here we go again.
Lesson 10.2, page 100. Exercises 1B and 1C.
Thanks for helping me with my project, Monty. So, my first question is, do you know where your laptop comes from?
Well, it's an American brand, but it probably wasn't made in the US. I guess it was designed there and then manufactured in China. But I didn't think about that when I bought it. I just wanted a good laptop for a good price.
I understand. And how about your coffee?
I guess the coffee beans were imported. They weren't grown here in Canada, that's for sure. They were probably shipped from Brazil. I think that's where some of the best coffee comes from. And this is really good.
Yeah. And how about your sandwich?
Well, I know it's fresh because it was made right in front of me. I'm not sure about the things in it, though. The tuna was probably caught and frozen weeks ago, but maybe the tomatoes were grown here. I hope so. It's good when fruit and vegetables are produced locally.
Okay, thanks very much. I think I'll get one of those sandwiches now. Talking about food always makes me hungry.
All right. So, why did Monty buy his laptop? So, Jasmine.
Uh, he just wanted a good laptop for a good price.
Yes, he mentioned about getting a good one for a good price. And then, what does he know for sure about his sandwich? And well, maybe I will take the answer from Omar because actually it was that it is fresh because it was made in front of him. So, um, let's move on. And before we continue here on the glossary, in case that you want to add this word, we have the word brand that is a product that is made by a particular company, right? So those like the brand of the shoes, the brand of the medicine, brand of clothing, etc., etc. Let's move on. Now, here's a conversation of Lucy and Monty. Now, I have here some vocabulary words like verbs, and we have like catch, manufacture, produce, store, etc. And what we will do, and I'm going to skip this part, is that we're going to classify them into four categories, okay? So in the first categories, you will write down the verbs that are for used for moving products from one place to another. On column number 2, for the ones that are creating and making things. 3, getting fish, getting fruit. And number 4, for those verbs that apply to keep things for a long time. Okay, I will give you probably 4 minutes, yeah, 4 minutes to see how far you can get, and then we will share it all together, the answers. All right. So the order that we're going to do this, it's from left to right. So horizontally, we will be giving the category for each one. So you don't have to say like the whole thing. It's just like catch goes in category 1, delivered category 2, or whichever the case is, okay? So let's go ahead and do 2 and 2. Yeah, 2 and 2. So catch and deliver. Catch and deliver. Who wants to classify that? Go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I classified catch in number 3 and deliver in number 1.
All right, thank you. Ismael, design and export.
Design in number 2 and export in number 1.
Thank you so much. And then next two, Aaron.
Freeze and grow, teacher.
Yes, please.
Freeze, I think will be in number 1, and grow, I think will be in number 2.
Okay, so one, freeze will be more like keeping things um for a long time. You know, sometimes you get to transfer things that needs to be stored. So yeah. And grow, it's more about creating or make like growing the plants or growing tomatoes, etc., etc. All right. Thank you so much. Let's go with the next two. Next two. Jonathan.
Import would be number 1 and manufacture number 2.
Import one and manufacture two. Thank you. Next two. Fernando.
And pick in number 1 and produce in number 2.
Pick in one and produce number two. All right. So in pick, it's more like picking like the fish or the fruit from the ground, things like that. And produce, yes, on number two. Thank you so much. And then the last three. Last three. Alan.
Can you hear me, teacher?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Ship is number 1, store number 4, and transport number 1.
Sorry, I got myself on mute. So chip on one, store on 4, and transport on 1. Excellent. So these are, we could say, vocabulary in regards of transportation, the growing of the things, even storage, because sometimes we know that originally things come from one place, but due to the long distance and time, uh, things need to be stored or even freeze because depending on how delicate things are to get from one place to another. But we know that everything is, it has an origin, right? Everything has an origin. And let's move on then. So now here on the screen, you will see two two sentences. One of them says coffee is drunk by 157 million Americans, and the second one says coffee was drunk by 157 million Americans. What is the difference and what is something these both sentences have in common? So just by looking at them, what is something that you find similar and what is something that you find different? Okay, so yes, one is present and one is in past, right? So we see that the first one, it's using is, so that it's more of present, and was, obviously, it's in past. But then, thank you so much, Omar. What is the difference between those two? So now we know the similarity, I'm sorry. What is something similar that they both have? Go ahead.
Both are talking with past participle. Well, they are the first one is simple present passive, and the another one is simple past passive.
Okay, that was a great observation. Yes, yes, yes. So maybe, Ismail, you were about on the same track. But yes, great clue. So if you noticed, even though that one is in present and one is in past, we still have a passive voice sentence on both. So we will continue talking about the passive voice, which we already know that it's to emphasize a result for the action, and that we are focusing on the one that it's receiving the action, not the actual one responsible of the action, right? We know for sure that we don't care who did it, we don't care who it is, we don't care about the person responsible on the sentence. We are just caring about the result, okay? So for example, we have paper was invented in China. We know for sure that we have, it is the same way as yesterday. We have a subject, we have the verb to be, but in this case is in simple past, and we have the past participle, right? We don't know who invented the paper, but still we just want to emphasize the importance of the paper being invented. However, there is something else in additional for the passive voice, so that every time that you see a sentence that says by, it means that it's still a passive voice sentence. Maybe it's saying the name of the person who did it, but still the person, it's not important. Just by the fact of using the word by, we completely know for sure that it's a simple uh past passive voice sentence, okay? So again, we know that the paper was invented, and we know who was it, but still we don't pay much attention to that fact. We just pay attention to the fact that it was invented. This can be another way of identifying simple past passive sentence by the additional by, okay? Not doesn't mean that doesn't mean that oh, here it says who is responsible. No, it is additional information, but not necessarily the focused on the sentence. So here we have like the examples, like this dress was designed by my friend. We don't care if the friend designed the dress. We just care the fact that the dress was designed. That's it. So by adding by, it is also belonging to the past passive. Um, However, I do want to make this difference clear in regards active and passive voice, because I mean, most of our sentences are structured with those kind of sentences, those active, or there are either active or passive. So we will see what active voice is about. So now here, the information that we have is that active voice is when you want to make someone responsible. Now it's a time when you are pointing out a person or some whatever the cause was. So now we don't care the result, we don't care about anything, just the person responsible of the action. Okay. I always like to think about active and passive voice as our two well-known countries, right? We have the American culture and then we have the Mexican culture. I always think, and this makes me kind of remember the difference between those two sentences because I always think of active voice as Mexicans because we like to blame everyone except yourselves, right? So whenever something happens, like if you're in your house and then your mom is there and then a cup of glass is broken, we don't care about the fact that the glass was broken, but we just point out your brother or sister and say he or she was the one responsible for that. So active voice, it's about that, about blaming, about being the one making someone responsible. And then on the other hand, the American culture, it's more about thinking about uh, the action itself. We don't care who did it. We just want to know what was the result of the action in order to solve it, right? So they don't care who to blame. They just care about giving a solution to that resulted action that we have. So, so far, do you have any questions about the difference? Or if you don't have question, thumbs up if everything is clear. Okay. So yeah, at least it helps me to think about it like the American versus the Mexican culture, active versus passive. So here we have one example. This is an example for an active voice sentence. The children broke the window. So we know the fact that the window was broken, but now we are blaming the children. We want to know who was it. So we know that it was the children, and we know that we are more interested on identifying who was the one um, or blame or the one responsible about the action. But then, how would you transform the same sentence into a passive sentence? So and before that, I want for you to notice that the structure has completely changed, right? We have the subject, but then we don't have a verb to be in between anymore. We don't have one, and also the verb is in past, not past participle, right? So therefore, we can say that active voice, we just simply have the subject and the verb in past, the main verb in past, okay? So now, with that being said, we have the children broke the window. How would you make it uh, a passive sentence? Ismael.
I think the window was broken by the children.
Excellent. Yes. So we can simply say the window was broken or even by the children, right? But in this case, we wouldn't care about the children breaking the window, right? So both of them are correct. We can either say the window was broken or the window was broken by the children, and both will be completely right. Why? Because we're just not interested of who broke it. We're just most interested about the fact that the window was broken. So, great job. Excellent. And I'm glad that you brought that into account as well because both sentences are valid. And well, I don't know, uh, more questions, any doubts of passive? All good? Thumbs up if everything's good. All right. Alrighty. Let's go with the grammar part. So we're focusing mostly on the simple past passive, but also I wanted to introduce you to what the active voice is and how is the difference between those two. But in the case of the simple past, how what combination do we use? Do we use was or were plus the past participle or a simple past verb? Ismael?
Past participle.
Yes, because we're still talking about passive voice, right? Thank you so much. And then in the questions and negative sentence, do we use or don't use did or didn't whenever we talk about passive voice? Do we use, so what do you think? And we have Jonathan.
In questions and negative sentences, do not do not use did or didn't.
Perfect. Excellent job. So we only use did or didn't in negative and question form when we talk about only simple past. But now, since we're talking about passive voice of the simple past, we actually don't use it because we know that we use was or were plus the past participle. Excellent. All right, let's move forward. Now, here I have an exercise that it has a combination of both active and passive sentences. Think about what we've been discussing, that passive it's more for the results and active it's more for making responsible of something. So let's go ahead and complete these sentences and then we will share them all together. 5 minutes for that and we will proceed, okay? So 5 minutes and then we will share them all together. All right, let's go ahead and share the answers. So I would need 6 people. If you want to start raising your hand, that way we can have an order on the sentences. Okay, so number 1 will be Ismael, Jonathan, number 2, David Navarrete, number 3. Go ahead.
All right. Number one, I bought a tablet online. It was shipped to me right away.
Thank you. Excellent. Jonathan.
These pictures were painted by my sister. She trained really well.
All right. So maybe on the second one just was trained, but otherwise great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Number 3, David.
My house was built more than 100 years ago. I have no idea who built it.
Excellent. And it is impressive. Thank you so much, David. How sometimes we can even have passive and active at the same sentence, right? On the first one, we know for sure that it's just on the action of building, but on the second one, they were more focused on the responsible, the person who built it. Thank you. Aaron, number 4.
These shoes made locally, but those were imported from Italy.
All right. So also on the first one, it's more passive than an active because we're just thinking about receiving the action of making those shoes. All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. And then next one, Jasmine.
Uh, she sent the birthday card on Tuesday and it was delivered the next day.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have she sent and then was delivered. And the last one, number 6. Thank you, Jasmine. Ismail.
Number 6, I caught this fish last summer and froze it right away.
Great. Thank you. So because you are the responsible, that's why we use active instead of passive. So excellent, excellent job, guys. Now, passive voice, it's not only used for uh, the origin of products, of food, of I don't know what else can it be, of materials, etc. But it can also be used for movements, right? Movements in the organization, even historical events in the past. We can even describe those with passive voice as well. So here we have this women's suffrage movement in which they gave us a little bit of information in regards, maybe some essential information. So I would like for you to help me reading this text. And also, if you are not reading it out loud, please follow the text so that you can become aware a little bit more on what the text is about. So I need 5 people. We have 5 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 people that wants to help reading out this document. All right, so Alan, you will be reading the first paragraph. Let me see who else. Jonathan, you will read the second paragraph. So Alan, Jonathan, what about another person? Or if you want, Alan, you can read the first two paragraphs and then Jonathan the last three. How about that?
Okay, teacher.
All
Right
right,
now?
go for it.
Okay, okay. Uh, the women's suffrage movement actually began in 1848 when the first women's rights convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York. For the next 50 years, women suffrage supporters worked to educate the public about the valid, validity of women's suffrage. Under the leadership of Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and other women's rights pioneers, suffragists circulated petitions and lobbied Congress to pass a constitutional amendment of enfranchised women. At the turn of the century, women reformers in the club movement and in the Stillman House movement want to pass reform legislation. However, many politicians were unwilling to listen to a disenfranchised group. Thus, over time, women began to realize that in order to achieve reform, they needed to win the right to vote. For these reasons, at the turn of the century, the women's suffrage movement became a mass movement.
In the 28th century, leadership of the suffrage movement pays to two organizations. The first, the National American Woman Suffrage Association, under the leadership of Carrie Chapman Catt, was a moderate organization. The, the NAUSA undertook campaigns to enfranchise women in individual states and simultaneously uh, lobbied President Wilson and Congress to pass a woman suffrage constitutional amendment in the 1910s. NAUSA's membership numbered in the millions. The second group, the National Women's Party, NWP, under the leadership of Alice Paul, was a more militant organization. The The NWP undertook radical actions, including picketing the White House in order to convince Wilson and Congress to pass a women's suffrage amendment. In 1920, due to the combined efforts of the NAUSA and the NWP, the 19th Amendment enfranchising women was finally ratified. This victory is considered the most significant achievement of women in the Progressive era. It was the single largest extension of democratic voting rights in our nation's history, and it was achieved peacefully through democratic processes. Women in the Progressive era. Retreat March and 9th, 2017 from, well, the HTML.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. So it is a very, I would say, a challenging text because there are many words. I can bet that there are many words that maybe we're wondering what are those words. So what I want for you to do, and thank you for helping us reading it, I want for you to do the following on your own, okay? This is an assignment that I will create here on Teams. And the thing that we will do is to create a PDF or a Word document in which you will include the following information. So point number one, you will have to give the main idea. So write at least one paragraph in your own words of what the text is about, okay? I want for you to read it, and then if you identify words that you are not familiar with, go ahead and highlight them and try to look for the definition or the equivalence. That way you can understand better the document, okay? So one of the things is that you will write the main idea, one paragraph in your own words, at least. At least. Obviously, you can write more, but at least I want for you to write one paragraph. The second thing that you have to do is identify as many past passive voice sentences as possible. So sentences in passive voice. And the third thing, it's for the unknown words. All those words that you didn't know on the text, go ahead and look for, write them down, write the definition in English, and then also the equivalents in Spanish, okay? So that is basically what we're doing for this time. I will give you until the end of the class for that. Um, Still, you have to continue here on the class because we're gonna do like the wrap up, close the class for today and things like that. But I need for you to work on this for the next 30 or 40 minutes, okay? Is there any questions on what we're doing? Or thumbs up if everything is clear. Okay, so I will put here the document, and then I will go ahead and create the actual assignment so that you can read the instructions. I will have them there. All right, just give me just a few seconds. In the meantime, if you want to go ahead and read it again for your own for yourself, or start creating your document in the meantime, however you want to do it, okay? So let me go ahead and create it. And by the way, I forgot to mention that all the assignments from Unit 9, all the assignments that I create on Teams, I'm thinking about giving you decimals for every completed assignment, okay? On time, obviously. So today's assignment, it's going to be open the whole day, but still, if you want to earn the decimals, you have to complete everything on the assignment. And I think that's a very good extra help for you to have a better grade. So don't forget that from now on all the way to the end of the semester, every time that I create an assignment on Teams, you will get maybe one decimal, two decimals, depending on the how hard the assignment is, okay? So just a heads up, just letting you know, so you can feel motivated. And here we go. The assignment is now available on Teams. If you have any questions or any doubts, I will be here. Well, guys, I will be back like in 5 to 8 minutes. All right. In case you need to ask me something, write it on the chat, but I will respond as quick as possible. And well, I'm here back. All right, guys. Well, it is almost time to leave, and I know that it's some of you have to take the bus, etc., etc. The assignment will be available for you the whole day. You still can turn in your assignment. And before we go, let's say what we learned today. So what did we learn today on the class? So what was it? I don't.
A little more about passive voice.
All right. So we talked about passive voice in simple past, right? Yes. What else? Jonathan.
How to, well, we identify the production and distribution of words by categories.
All right. So yes, we were looking at some vocabulary, correct? And all in regards of origin of things. Excellent. Anything else? What about active voice? What is active voice focused on? Jonathan.
With active voice, we focus to make someone responsible for something.
Okay, to make responsible or give responsibility on something. Yes, great job. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, that'll be all for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget, you are free to turn in your assignment today during the day, and see you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you, teacher. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.